Militia Crew, what it do? It is Tuesday. We are going to talk, of course, the big talk going on. What was the Raiders' grade on the draft pick? We got mixed, feelings and emotions amongst the nation. Some people have them too high graded. Some people have them too low graded. What is the grades? And then, if he pulls up, we got a special guest to break it all down, give his grades, and talk about it. And let's get unleashed.
Raiders Unleashed. The Rebellion. Raiders Unleashed on the screen. Hit that subscribe. It's the RaidersRebel in the building. Silver and black. 2026. Yeah. Welcome to the desert. You know what time it is. Raiders Unleashed on the screen. Hit that subscribe. It's the RaidersRebel in the building. Silver and black. 2026. Let's go! Left the bay for the lights, now we lighting up the strip. A legion in the desert, yeah, we built a mothership. No more dirt on the diamond, no more Coliseum rain. Just a blacked out dome where we deal out the pain. We're the villains of the league, always been the outcast. Built on Al Davis' ghost and we're built to outlast. The torch is still burning, it's a lifestyle, a creed. In the city of sin, we're the only ones you need. Silver and black is back, check the throne. The Raiders got a new home in the dome. The nation is rising, we're coming for everyone. Forget the other 31, we're the only ones. Yeah, we're unleashed. Rebel with the vision, Raider nation worldwide. Making that precision, one mission, one pride. Until the game is won, fuck the other 31. We're second to none. Check the box office, yeah, the leadership is changing. Tom Brady in the office, things are rearranging. The GOAT is a minority owner, that's a fact. Bringing that winning DNA, no turning back. From the field to the booth, now he's part of the shield. Watching from the suite while we're dominant on the field. The rebels on the mic, Raiders Unleashed on the tube. Giving you the raw truth, we don't move like a rube. I'm a rebel with a cause, and the cause is the win. Blacking out the sun, let the nightmare begin. Chiefs, boats, and the ponies, they can all catch a fade. They're just stepping stones for the history we made. From the pirate on the helmet to the patch on the eye. We're the heartbeat of Vegas under that desert sky. Turn the volume up high, let the channel go live. In the Raider Nation, only the strongest survive. Silver and black is back, check the throne. The Raiders got a new home in the dome. The nation is rising, we're coming for everyone. Forget the other 31, we're the only ones. Yeah, we're unleashed. Rebel with the vision, Raider nation worldwide. Making that precision, one mission, one pride. Until the game is won, fuck the other 31. We're second to none. You hear the RAIDERS chant. They thought we'd go soft in the desert, they can't. We brought the autumn wind to the 702. The Rebel and Unleashed, coming straight for you. Raiders Unleashed, you know where to find us. RaidersRebel, keeping it 100. Vegas is ours, the dome is ours. The shield is forever. Sound of a sword clashing, fade to silence.
What's good? What's good? What's good? Shout out to the people already in the building, man. I appreciate y'all. I see y'all commenting, getting the chat started. What's good? We got a special one today. Well, we're supposed to have a special one today. We don't know. We're still waiting. I'm waiting on the confirmation. But, we'll keep the wheels turning and keep the show going until that happens. Let me know if y'all can see me, if you can hear me, if everything is good. Before I just keep flapping my gums, let me know y'all can see me. Let me know y'all can hear me. Let me put on these glasses so I can see. That probably helps. I'm doing good. Appreciate you. Appreciate Raider Ryan in the building. Number one, first one, Faded Raider with a close second. If it was a race, y'all would be neck and neck. Candy Angel in the building. What's good, girl? How you doing? My internet is out, so I can't stream, but I told everyone to come check out your stream today. Well, that's nice because you close to what? You pushing 100,000? You about to push 100,000? 100K? Y'all go help her get to 100K and send 100, like 10K of those over here. Let them subscribe. We'll be doing all right. Stream Elements. Why is that popping up? Bot running. Why is there a bot running? I thought I turned that thing off. Jack Gustavo. What it do? What it do, man? What up, Rated Nation? He says. I wanted to make sure the comments on both streams, Rebel. Um, is the other stream working? Do I have two streams up? Let me know. Do I have a phone view and the regular long form view? Tatted Raider in the building. You can hear me. You can see me. What the is good, Rebel? My guy Brad in the building. You know, everything's good right now. The Raiders got a quarterback. We got some players in the building that could help out. We got a coach. You know, we got Spytek in the building, steering the ship like the captain he is. It's all good right now. For now, for now, we'll see when preseason comes how many interceptions there are by the quarterbacks, and everybody thinks our defense is going to be number one because all the turnovers. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Appreciate you. Both work. Nice. All right, man. So I had a guest. I don't know what's going on. Maybe he didn't get the memo. Maybe I forgot to give the memo. No, I'm just saying. But we reviewed all the OG picks, right? But we didn't really talk too much about the UDFAs. There's been a couple more brought on. We did touch on it a little bit. Let's get it. The feeling is different, right? The feeling is way different, man. Way different. Just the mood around the nation, what I'm hearing around the building, man. Everybody's ready to go and raring to go. But let me know who was your favorite UDFA, right? Roman Himby. I'll just stop right there. That was a guy that I wanted on this team. Jack Kenna, what up? What up? You know, I just felt like his power, his bulldozing, kind of like that Travis Henry type, you know, could run through the tackles, get us those short yardage, get us those touchdowns, right? On the 2, 3, 1 yard line that we've been so bad at as of late. But yeah, so Roman Himby, you know, Indiana guy, pair him with his former quarterback. I think that's a good way to start the building. And then they throw on top of it EJ Williams, you know, pretty underrated when you had Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt, Chase, Charlie Becker, right? They had a stacked squad over there. So not a lot of balls to go around, especially when you run the ball, you know, 60% of the time, which it felt felt like they did. I think they averaged close to 180 yards a game. Absolutely insane, even for college football. So EJ Williams is going to help this team. Gary Smith III, right? A defensive tackle from UCLA. You know, a big body guy that hopefully those UDFA guys can come in camp and show, hey, look, you know, my tape didn't show everything. Some of these guys were put in the wrong position, right? They were playing 4-tech when they're really a 2-eye, or they're playing nose when they're, you know, really supposed to be a 4-tech. So some of these guys, you know, they're just put in the positions where it helps the college team win, because that's what you're trying to do in college, right? You're trying to win. So a guy like Gary Smith III, you know, we'll see. There's room for, you know, there's room on the squad. I feel like there's guys on the squad that have been on the squad for a while that we already see are starting to drop off, right? They traded Tyree Wilson. We'll get to that. He's in the news talking about our team and his former team. They went and got a tight end, right? A tight end out of Boise State. I don't know if he was there with Ashton Genty. I didn't go too far into the tight end research. I don't feel like we need one. I'm a big Carter Runyon fan. I'm a Michael Mayer fan. I think with those and Brock Bauer, that's 3 of the best tight ends. You know, that's a damn good tight end group. So that's 2 of the best backups. I think Carter Runyon has a bright future. You know, RAS scores off the charts, got all the athletic ability, can jump out the building for a big man. But competition, right? Iron sharpens iron. Can't believe my dude is not here yet. So yeah, they went and got a tight end, Matt Latour. I think it's Latour. I'm not absolutely positive. And then they went and got another offensive tackle. We talked about this yesterday. Isaiah Jada out of BYU, a big guy, right? Got some, got some accolades. He's got strong hands, physical. He's big, got long arms, not 31 or 32-inch arms for a 6'6" offensive lineman, right? He kind of fits the critique. So a guy that could get on the practice squad and push. There's not a lot of depth at the say that 3 times fast. Not a lot of depth at the right tackle position, right? You're looking at DJ Glaze, which I hope last year was just a fluke and it was just bad coaching. And DJ Glaze can jump on his horse, practice that kick step, right? Get that kick step, get that long arm going, and use his power and his strength to his advantage. So that's what I want to see from DJ Glaze. And then, my Arkansas boy, Dalton Wagner, man, I've been trying to get this man a push, for 3 years now. 3 years, practice squad, practice squad, practice squad. He's on the roster now. We'll see how that goes with camp. I think, Zahn probably, Trey Zune, probably pushes him back to the practice squad if he's even on the team. So guys like that, man, they need to go. They need to show something. It's time, and you're running out of time because the Raiders are drafting players to take your spots, right? They're not happy with a lot of players on the old regime. Some of these guys like Tyree, 3-4 years, Isaiah Palamau, I don't know what they feel about him, right? A lot of these guys that were not drafted seems like they are in question, and you're going to have to show something on this squad. And then the kicker, we talked about the kicker, the Tokyo Toe, bring in good competition. Quarterback Sawyer Robinson, we touched on him yesterday. If you missed it, I think he's got a chance to compete, right? I think he's that guy that's going to be the practice squad guy. I feel like the Raiders keep 3 quarterbacks on their roster. One could be an emergency quarterback. You can make that emergency quarterback Fernando Mendoza if you have to, and let Aiden O'Connell be the backup, or Kirk Cousins be the backup, or however that story works out. But it brings competition. And then Tyler, the long snapper, Tyler Dazansky, we talked about that yesterday. We had a little bit of tail, lots of blocked punts, block kicks, getting pressure in the backfield when you shouldn't have that problem. But a lot of people were saying there was a tail, and Jacob Baumenheimer, where people were starting to catch on to when he was going to snap the ball. So we moved on from that. We got another one in the building just to have competition at that position, which we haven't had for a while. They bring in another safety out of Troy, Devin Lafayette, right? Don't know too much about Lafayette. Haven't really got to that film yet. I'm watching a lot of these guys. Tanner Wall, we talked about that yesterday, a safety out of BYU. I think this guy has upside and, could possibly make the practice squad. I don't think he, makes the roster depending on where they go, right? If they get rid of some of these guys like Tristan McCollum or, DCAM or Isaiah, then, there's another roster spot. Also, if the offensive lineman, Trey Zune, if that dude can catch on and be on the roster, that's one less offensive lineman you have to keep on the roster because he can play both tackle positions. He can play both guard positions and center. So that gives you, another receiver to add to the roster or another corner to add to the roster. I like what the Raiders are doing here, man. I really do. And then, another corner, Caleb Oford at a Kenshaw State. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was the guy that was covering Elijah Surratt. I want to say it might have been Omar Cooper. But if you go back and watch that Kenshaw State game, a game that Fernando Mendoza and Indiana struggled, off the rip, new team, new quarterback, right? New pieces, a lot of people learning the system. They just got better and better as they went. But Kenshaw State, man, if it's the corner I'm thinking, he's pretty solid physical. Could maybe, maybe give us that slot guy, but competition. I would like to see us keep, more corners and safeties on the roster than what we have in the previous, in the past. And I feel like all these guys, they're going to come in. They're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. And I don't know how happy the Raiders are with, some of their previous roster guys. Kane Stone at a KC State, an edge rusher I know nothing at all whatsoever. I didn't watch NC State, so I do not know anything about this young man yet. But stay tuned. We're going to be breaking down all these players, talk about them, talk about their strengths and weaknesses, what their chances are of making the roster, and whose job they're going to take if they do make the roster, right? So stay tuned. We got videos coming. We're trying not to do it on live. I got to start posting videos, man. I don't do shorts or videos, and it's killing my algorithm. So videos will be coming. And then wide receiver, man. I like the wide receivers. I like all the wide receivers they brought in. There were many people that were very frustrated because you had guys, on the board that you could have went and got. There was a lot of wide receivers when we were picking. One was Denzel Boston, who I had as my number one guy for the Raiders. Obviously, they didn't. They decided to go in another direction and beef up the defense, which, I was hoping they did that too. Safety was a huge need. So they went and got Chase Roberts, right? A guy out of BYU. If you go back and watch his film, if you can watch the film because you can watch 10, 15 plays in a row. The kid is solid, right? Solid. Highlight reel looks pretty good. Decent hands, decent separation, seem to be open a lot. So go check out Chase Roberts if you get a chance for BYU. I think he's going to push these wide receivers. Every wide receiver that we got as a UDFA, I think has a chance to somehow squeeze on the roster because the guys that have been here on the roster for, a couple of years ain't really flashed or done enough to say this is the guy and he's the number one, wide receiver, I feel. And then Corey Ruckner Jr., Arkansas State. Man, as a Razorback fan, we play Arkansas State. I do believe every year, it's kind of like the little brother. We go down to Arkansas State, play down there. And Corey Rucker Jr. was a guy that was murdering the Razorbacks defense, but pump the brakes because the Razorbacks defense was absolutely dog water, right? I'm trying to be nice, right? They weren't dog water. We'll just say that. They were dog water. Not very good. But Corey Ruckner was a dude that was just murdering our secondary. So go check out him if you get a chance. And then O-line from Duke, Justin Pickett. Again, I don't know anything about this cat. I wouldn't lie to you and tell you I did. Haven't got that far yet, but he's one I'm going to watch for sure. Because there's also some questions on our offensive line, right? We got some guys that were drafted in the old regime. Do they make this roster? Are there being, people picking up the phone and saying, hey, what you doing with this cat, right? I don't think he's going to be your starter or your backup. And I don't think he's wanting to be third string, right? So, some of these guys might get moved around before the start of the season, and some of these offensive linemen, might come in and show out. I don't even know what position Justin Pickett plays. Then Xavier Sori, we talked about that a lot. The connection with Georgia, with both Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker, right? So there's a connection there. I think Sori has a damn good chance to make this linebacker room. If you look at our linebacker room, we got Cody Lindenberg, Tommy Flippin Eichenberg, and then we got Jamin Davis, Quay Walker, and Nakobe Dean, right? Those are our cats. So room for the locker, for running back room, I say they keep probably 6, I would guess. That means there's probably 2 spots open. 4 spots open. we only know who 2 are, right? Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker. And then some of these guys we brought in, will be shuffled to the outside linebacker position instead of, an edge rusher just because the base defense that we run. So that'll be fun to see as well. And then Jacoby Clark, man, Jacob Clark, Missouri State quarterback. Absolutely don't know nothing. I have no idea. Again, I will though. Videos are coming. And then Chris Thomas out of Maine, linebacker. The only linebacker we brought in as the second linebacker we brought in as a UDFA. Didn't draft any linebackers, right? I mean, I guess if you want to call Kieran, however you want to say his name, Kieran Crawford. I guess you can count him as an outside linebacker. So other than that, I think he's an edge, right? I think he's more classified as an edge. Tyreek can kick rocks, bust. Well, according to Tyree Wilson, it wasn't, it wasn't his fault. It was the Raiders' fault. It was the Raiders' fault. It was too many problems in the building. What happened? Hold up. No worries. All right, so my guy has some issues. He's getting ready. He'll be on to talk Raiders. And I just messed up what I was looking at here. Shit. Go back to this. Hell no. All right. I had one more guy to talk about, and I lost the list. All right, I got another one. Damn it, right here. All right. Yeah, that was the last one. Ian Thomas, man. Or Chris Thomas. My bad. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. 18 UDFAs. I've seen a little noise and a little rambling that they've also brought in some invites because I think we have a couple spots left to fill that 90-man roster. I believe we had 65 on the roster after the Tyree Wilson trade. So 65 and 10 put us at 75. That gives us, that only gives us 15. So I don't know. We'll have to go back and recount that roster because you can only have 90 guys in camp. So I don't know what's going on over there, what they're doing. Kenneth says, loved Himby. I would have drafted him. Yeah, I'm surprised he wasn't drafted, man. He's a guy that's going to bring high value to your team, and he's going to bring huge value to our team as a UDFA, right? Just the pick alone, and what he brings, to the blocking game. He can be a 3-down back if he has to, in case, unspecified circumstances happen. Say that any way I can without putting it out there. Tyreek could kick rocks. Tokyo guy will beat out Gay. Name Gay could go to the 49ers. Oh shit, Jack. I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, if they keep both kickers at least until the preseason, and maybe just keep both kickers anyways to have. Appreciate you. God bless you. Thanks for the blessings. Shout out to you. We got Mendoza, man. How you feel about it? Are you happy? Obviously, you good? Do you think he starts day one? We'll get into that. We'll break it down when my guy gets on here, see what he has to say. My internet is behind a bit. Sorry. Yeah, bro, 1,000K. She's murdering it. I should have her on the show more. Maybe maybe I get some people over here. Troy in the building. Vikings. How you feel about your draft? Love so. Raider Nation. What's good? Raiders. Question: do we have any good wide receivers right now? I feel we do, my guy. I feel we do. I really feel like Cedric Jackson, right? The great nephew of the great Bo Jackson, sees his opportunity, right? Hopefully this man is out there working in camp. He's working on his bend. He's working on dropping his hips, and getting into his breaks, working on his route running because the speed is there. The size is there. We know he can catch. We've seen it last year. We've seen it in the preseason. We're going to see it more in the preseason again. So Cedric Jackson is a name to watch out for. If Dante Thornton was out there all year grinding, working on his breaks, working on, getting his hips low, running with lower body instead of running straight up at 6'6", right? Those are all things that, need to be worked on. Trey Tucker seems to be a Clint Kubiak favorite, right? Clint Kubiak has mentioned Trey Tucker a lot. So that's another guy to look out for with his speed, decent route running. He's strong, he's physical, he can block, he can do all that hard hat stuff. Yeah, man, yeah, and then Jalen Naylor is a guy that everybody's sleeping on, right? The Raiders didn't pay him $30+ million to be a 4-string wide receiver, right? They didn't. That's why they didn't go draft one. I think everybody was upset because they didn't go draft a receiver in the top 7 picks. I don't feel like they felt like they needed one, and I didn't really feel like that either. You have plenty of time to rebuild this team, right? They've already told everybody it's a rebuild, so why rush it? Why rush it? Give the guys in your building, like Spytek says, right? The guys drafted Raiders, the guys brought in as UDFAs, they want to keep around, right? They want to keep these guys and not let them walk. So give these guys like Jack Besh, who I think is going to be a star this year. I would not be surprised if Jack Besh is close to 1,000 yards. I'm not going to lie. If they just feed him the rock, if he's, the number 2 or the number 3 option, he's going to be a problem. He's going to be a problem. Look at the number 3 option at Indiana for Fernando Mendoza, right? So if Fernando's out there, Jack Besh is going to be a problem. Dante Thornton, man, I hope he's a problem because with his speed and his size, he could just bring so much to this squad. And I hope he's out there grinding. I hope he's listening, man. Get on your horse, right? Go get the best. You got money. Go get the best trainers and hone your craft. So there's a lot of receivers. And then you have the great Jerry Rice's son in the building, right? Brendan Rice, another guy that's got to see his opportunity and sees that opportunity. You have an opportunity to play where your father played. How do you let that slip away, Brandon Rice? How do you let that slip away? You should go out there and be the best damn receiver you could possibly be, right? Carry on your father's legacy, man. I would love, I said tile and marble for a living. My son didn't want to do that. He was like, bro, I ain't doing that shit. You work way too hard, Pops. So yeah, you would love for your son to follow in your footsteps. And I'm sure Jerry Rice would love to see, Brendan, I think, didn't he get drafted by the 49ers? I could be mistaken, but now you got a chance to, play where your dad was in a Super Bowl with the, I almost said Las Vegas Raiders, with the Oakland Raiders. So yeah, that's a legacy that's an opportunity that you can't pass up if you're Brandon Rice. You should be doing everything you can out there working with Jerry Rice every single day, right? Getting the route running, down, making sure your hands are like glue. Yeah, there's opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of receivers in the building. I think I have a list right now. Hold on. Where's my list? I have the list. List. Oh, also the Raiders numbers are out. If y'all haven't seen that, I'll get to that in 1 second. Let me see if I have this list. Yeah, man. So Philip Dorsett is another guy, right? Another guy that's quick, has been around. I believe didn't he play with Brady? I have to check my facts, but Philip Dorsett, I keep calling him Tony and Anthony, but that's not his name. It's Philip. Another guy, sneaky guy that can make this roster. Justin Shorter, right? They brought him in as a tight end. They moved him to receiver. They moved him back to tight end. They brought him back again to be a wide receiver. So I believe that, to me, that tells me that Clint Kubiak seen Justin Shorter and was like, yo, I could work with this man, right? I could do something with this young man. So, all right, my guy, the one and only, the great Alex Monfreda in the building.
Rebel, what is happening, my man?
Brother, you fall asleep on me?
Dude,
You're good, man. You're good. No, yeah. So we're just talking about the wide receivers right now. Who we think has a chance. Somebody asked if we have any good wide receivers, and I was like, yeah, I think we do. Right? I think we have some sleepers. So, we're talking about Cedric Jackson, right? The great nephew of Bo Jackson, and what opportunity he has to make this roster, or the chance that he has. And then Brendan Rice, right? the son of the great Jerry Rice. Like, how could you not seize the opportunity you have to follow in your father's footsteps and play for a team like the Raiders, right? So
Yeah.
I think to me, like, these guys, need to be giving it 150% in the off season and doing, honing their craft so they can, I mean, that's big footsteps to fill your father's Jerry Rice. But damn, if you're on, you're already on the roster, right? You know what I mean? And so you're already on the, or at least on the practice squad roster, but you're on the 90-man roster. So, you have a chance to actually make this team and do something. I think that's a huge opportunity for Brandon Rice.
And I agree with you, man. I agree with you. Of course, you're not going to live up to your father's footsteps. There's no real way around that. But you don't have to. If you can be, the reality is, you'd be literally half as good as Jerry Rice. You have a Hall of Fame career, and that's what it is.
Facts.
Yeah, man. But there is a lot of talent on this roster, and even the two wide receivers that the Raiders brought in as undrafted free agents, EJ Williams, Indiana, and Chase Roberts.
Roberts, yep.
BYU. They bring a little something. I mean, they're not guys that are going to be competing for a starting role anytime soon. Don't get me wrong, but they bring a little something. And I like the game of both of these guys, and watching the tape over on both of them, especially EJ, because I was a little familiar with Chase Roberts, but EJ, he had no buzz whatsoever. I mean, you can even you try to look for the scouting reports on the internet and stuff, you won't even find them. I mean, it's like nobody even knew this guy existed. So
he's like my guy Omega Blake from Arkansas. I mean, a sneaky receiver, 6'2", good speed, long arms, and he was the number one target for Taylor Green. Now, a bunch of plays, Taylor Green, overthrew him, underthrew him, wasn't his fault. But man, he could have easily had 1,000 yards. He's a damn good receiver, a hard hat dude, blocks in the run game, and was nowhere even mentioned. I still don't think he was, even on the UDFA list, but he entered the draft.
Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely a lot to like. Now you could always raise the question, is there a lot to like because the top is so weak that the bottom is giving us hope? And sure, that there's a lot of truth to that, but nonetheless, there is really a lot to like at the bottom. And I think the top is really the problem, because when you look at the bottom, all these guys, EJ, Roberts. I mean, Roberts, I would be surprised if he was ever really competing for wide receiver 3, but making a team for sure. But guys like EJ and the two guys you mentioned earlier, who are both actually on the active roster right now, these guys could all be competing for wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 on various teams across the league, and nobody would be surprised if they won the job, right? So there's definitely a lot of depth. It's really just the top end stuff that you want to see more from with the Raiders.
Yeah, and in EJ Williams, we talked about it. We talked about it yesterday on my live as well. Is a lot of people don't know who he was, like you said, and slept on. But he's actually been at Indiana for 3 quarterbacks. He was one of the targets that Curtis Rourke, that threw to a lot. And then a lot of people forget that Brandon Sorsby was also there at Indiana before Cignetti got there, and he was a target then. So he's been around 3 years at Indiana. He's made plays, a bunch of plays. He just some reason just kind of slipped through the cracks, and I don't understand it. But I love the fact that the Raiders didn't let him slip through the cracks, and they seen him in games. They're like, man, because we talked about it during the offseason. When we were talking about how Fernando Mendoza, there were people saying, oh, well, he don't have no, number one receiver. And I said, are you kidding me, bro? Like he's got Omar Cooper, you got Elijah Surratt, and then you got, Charlie Becker, who is going to probably be, close to a first or second round, pick next year. And then EJ Williams that everybody was sleeping on. And then we drafted it. I thought we just brought in another guy, I think from Indiana. I want to say I don't have that right now, but I just seen a report that I think they brought somebody in for a workout, but I don't think we have any spots left. Aren't we close to 90?
I think just about at 90. Now there isn't the exemption because IPP, but and that would allow 91, the international player pathway, because they don't count towards the 90-man offseason roster. It's a free spot, but it's getting close, man.
Is Lecky Tassi on that? Is he
See, during the press conference, the final press conference wrapping up the draft, they kind of hinted that, man, I don't know how to say his name, Tokyo Toe was taking that spot, which would actually make a lot of sense because the IPP is solely for practice squad. Like it doesn't exist with the regular season roster. In fact, if you're IPP designated, you can't actually be elevated to the 53 man. Now you can be signed to the 53 man at any time, but you can't be elevated if you have the IPP. So it would make a lot of sense that they're saying, all right, we had Laki Tasi there last year. We developed him a bit. Now we're going to have Tokyo Toe there because, like I said, if you're IPP designated, you're automatically only on the practice squad. And it's basically a developmental role. You don't go with the main team or anything. So it would make a lot of sense that it's Tokyo Toe.
Yeah, I believe they'll have him and Gay battling it out, all the way to the preseason. And I wouldn't be surprised if they keep both, right? Just to have a veteran to kind of help him, go through it because he hasn't played football very long, for one, right? He taught himself how to kick on YouTube. So, the guy hasn't been around a lot of football. So I think having a veteran kicker it might have to take up a roster spot. And hopefully we have a good enough roster we can afford that luxury, but we'll see.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to go back really quick because something I want to talk about EJ Williams really quick again, because again, it's like you said, and like I said, there's nothing out there on this guy. So a lot of people, when they hear EJ Williams, it's like, I'm kind of excited about him solely because Indiana with Mendoza, no other reason, because there is like, people just don't know about the guy. So Fernando Mendoza gets a lot of flack because he doesn't go through his reads or whatever. And that's really not true. We actually talked about this last week on the show. Most of the time he just acknowledges where he's going to go right away, and he doesn't have to go through his reads. It's a plus for Mendoza. It's not a negative. But when he does have to go through his reads, the interesting thing is I found watching the tape, and I didn't watch highlights. I mean, I did, initially just to see what I was in for, and then I watched the actual game tape. I found that when Mendoza is going through his reads, the guy he actually goes to the most is EJ Williams. And I found that the reason for that is because EJ is very good at, when plays break down, he finds the soft spots in the zone, and he
Exactly.
just and Mendoza,
he doesn't just sit there and stop and wait. He's moving around.
Yeah.
He's coming back to his quarterback. I've seen that too, my guy.
Exactly. So what happens is when Mendoza does look at EJ Williams, it's not just he's looking for EJ Williams necessarily. It's when his eyes finally get there, EJ is just open when the play breaks down every single time. So that's why EJ is the guy that Mendoza does throw to in those situations. Not necessarily because there's a trust factor, but because he's just open all the time. Mendoza sees it. He's open, so they do have that trust factor because of that, but he doesn't throw to him because there's a trust factor. That's just the added bonus that the Raiders are getting. And so it does really make a lot of sense that I can only imagine that upon drafting Fernando Mendoza, and even before that, talking to him pre-draft process when they knew that they were going to draft him, that they were gauging like, hey, talk us through like some of your teammates. Like, what do you think of Omar? Trading up to get him, et cetera, et cetera.
About that.
and I can only imagine that Mendoza was like, EJ, a lot of the time plays broke down. I look and he's open, and it makes a lot of sense. EJ. Yeah, he's a good player, man.
Yeah, there was, and to your point, I'm gonna just ask this, said he was always open, and I seen the same thing. He's a guy that's moving, coming back to the quarterback, constantly working. He's not standing still. But I think a lot of that too is, you got four receivers, and they're all pretty solid. And when they're out, when you're all four of them are out there, then you pretty much got a linebacker or a slot or or a safety or something on you, which helps a lot, right? When you're route running, if you're not having to go against the number one or the number two corner, right?
And this dude had 6 touchdowns last year, which doesn't, it's not like an impressive number, but you figure he was the wide receiver 4 on the team. There are 3 guys above him, and he still managed to get 6 touchdowns with Mendoza last year. So that's a lot for a wide receiver 4. You're not going to find many wide receiver 4s with 6 freaking touchdowns.
6 touchdowns, right? I mean, we can't even get Trey Tucker to get 6 touchdowns, and he's wide receiver 1.
I mean, there you have it.
I mean, yeah. So there you go, folks. Yeah, we got a guy that can get open, that's sneaky good, and I wouldn't be surprised if, like you said, if he's pushing a lot of receivers in this room.
Yeah, no doubt. But man, what did you think of the draft? What did you think of just throughout?
I actually loved it. I loved, and I'm gonna tell you what, my main reason is because a lot of fans are pissed off because they didn't get the defensive tackle they wanted, or they didn't get the receiver they wanted. And I feel like the Raiders did their due diligence, right? They're not drafting on big names. They don't care if your name's, Omar Cooper, or, if your name's Denzel Boston, and, you're talking about going them, in the first round or second round. I don't think they cared about that. I believe that, and it shows, they cared about the character, the person, and how much these players love ball, right? And that just tells me that, if they passed on a guy like Denzel Boston, and they seen something in him that we don't see, right? Because we just get to watch the tape. We don't get to interview the kid, right? We don't get to know his background. We don't get to know all that. The Raiders do. So I think, people are very upset because the draft didn't go the way they wanted it to go. But I love the fact that they went and got guys that nobody was talking about, right? Nobody was looking at, trading Stoops going in the second round, right off the rip. Nobody thought about that. And then you go get, Trey Zune and at pick 91 that you trade and get him there. So I don't think anybody's seen that. In my draft, when I was live, everybody's like, oh, it's got to be a wide receiver, right? It's got to be DT. And I'm telling, I've been saying this all off season. DT is not their biggest need. It's not. And they showed it by the draft. If it was, there was guys they could have went and got, right? So, you have scouts in the building that not only get to watch tape on these guys, but they get to watch them live. They get to interview them. They get to talk to their families. They get to do a lot of things that we don't get to do. So I love that the fact that the Raiders went and picked guys that, weren't big names, and pretty much everybody's board was wrong. I love it. I love it. I mean, they got guys that like Hakeem Massis, who, we talked about, and I was big on Hakeem Massis. I had him in a bunch of mock drafts. Trading Stooks. I didn't know a lot about Dalton Johnson, but some people I've seen had him in their top 10, which that says a lot for, the people that had him in the top 10 are pretty respectful people in the draft community. So, I think we got a lot of sleepy guys that people just don't know much about, so they're gonna be like, oh, I just don't like this guy. But how much film did you really watch on him, right? Did you watch his highlights and just be like, oh, nah, he's not good? Because if you're watching the highlights on any of these guys, they're all pretty solid, especially where the value they were picked, right? I think Zune could have went, a little bit higher. A lot of people said they reached on him. They could have got him, further down in the draft. And then you get the best corner in all of football, probably the last 2 years, with a 4th round pick at 102 or 101, because you move up to get him in McCoy. And even with the injury, right, there's not a lot of risk there. It's a 4th round pick. It was a gimme pick from the guys we lost, right? So it was a comp pick, or it was either I believe it was a comp pick, but yeah. So it's just a comp pick from a guy we lost, and if he plays this year, or even at 20 years old, if he sits this year and plays next year, and you have a lockdown corner, for the future, for the next 5-10 years, man, that's the best steal out of the draft. So I love the way they went. A lot of people, are going to hate. I kind of was like, man, the injury though, but obviously they did their homework. I'm pretty sure they did their homework and was like, man, this injury ain't nothing. The kid could play all year and be just fine. And if he does that, then you got 2 first-round picks. And one of those first-round picks, was in the 4th round. And then my guy, Mike Washington, man, I mean, I can't be more ecstatic when Razorbacks go to my Raiders. I love it. I've been waiting for Dalton Wagner to do something for, forever. They brought in Clark, the safety, last year. And, man, if they would have kept him, I think our safety room would have been a lot better, right? He was a cover guy. So, yeah, I think you get the 1-2 punch with Ashton Genty, thunder and lightning, like he said. And, a lot of people are like, but you drafted a running back 6th overall. Like, what, Saquon Barkley has a backup. Matter of fact, Saquon Barkley has 2 backups that touch the ball. You know what I mean? Bijan Robinson has a backup. His backup gets carries too, right? So all these starting running backs, they don't just feed them the rock constantly 25, 35 times a game. Even Travis Henry got a backup. Like, that dude's, 250 pounds. You could run over anybody. Do you really need a backup? You should be able to take the brunt of the load if you're only touching the ball 15, 20 times a game, right? But even these guys got backups. So I love it. Kubiak runs, a 2-back system. And now you have 2 very, very talented bowling balls that'll run people over, run through people, run around people. And then once they get by him, especially with Mike Washington, he's gone. He's gone. So I liked all the picks. I really do. The Crawford pick is one that really surprised me where they took him, but I love it, right? If you look at Keldick Falk on the other side of him at Auburn, right? He had more snaps. Crawford had more pressures.
Mm-hmm.
He had more snaps. Crawford had more more quarterback hits, and so in less snaps, having better average of a guy that was projected to go in the first round. You know what I mean? Like, and you got him at pick 67. I think that's good value, and that's why I had pretty much an A on all of these guys. I think the last pick, I had to give it a C just because there were guys before that you could have got. There was Cameron Ball out of Arkansas, who's just a dog in the middle, and I think would have fit that nose tackle perfect. Right, he's fast. He can get to the quarterback. He can stop the run. He has a motor. So that pick was the only one I really questioned, but everything else, man, I like the direction they went. I thought they filled major needs at every position, and some people might question the Crawford is a need, but you don't know what Max Crosby's health is, right? We don't know what his knee's going to do throughout the season. You don't know if the Raiders are still like, if we get 2 first rounds, bye Max, right? You don't know. So, and then you also don't know what Malcolm Kuntz is going to be, or if Twitty Payne is gonna be that first round pick that he was projected to be, or that he was drafted at. So there's a lot of questions, and you can't have too many edge rushers, especially in a 3-4. I think Crawford fits it better than Max Crosby. I think he's a little bit faster, right? In my opinion, could cover a little bit better. He's done it in college, so I think that pick really helps us, right? Because then you have, if he just shows a little bit of pop in the first year, I mean, that's a win all the way around.
Absolutely. And to go back to something you said a little bit ago now, when you said that you didn't think defensive tackle was that big of a need, and I think I talked about this last week when I was on too. I don't think defensive tackle is a need at all. In fact, I'd go even further in saying, if you look at Tyree Wilson before this trade happened, I think the biggest thing he was projected to do was contribute to some degree inside. I'm not saying nose tackle necessarily, but 3-4 end. I think that was his biggest projection in this, and still the Raiders took a look at that and said, like we have basically a logjam here, which I think they have anyway, and we're like, we can afford to get rid of people, and so not only was it not a need, but they were actively unloading contributors to that. So there's that, but I think a lot of the talk, and especially how you worded it and you spun it, was it's the consensus board, and I'm sure that you've seen this debate on Twitter this entire week, the consensus board, and everybody going crazy about it. Do you stick to it? Do you whatever? The consensus board is, to me, a way that a lot of fans who don't watch the tape, because let's be honest, a lot of fans aren't going to watch 300 players worth of tape every single year, right? Because obviously you recycle and then you repeat it the next year. Mm-hmm. Who's doing that, right? A lot of people aren't doing that. So the consensus board, to me, is a way for fans to just look at guys they don't know anything about because they don't watch the film on them and be like, how could you draft this guy here when the consensus board has him here? Man, you don't know a damn thing about this player. Who are, like, you know what I'm saying? So that's the funny thing with the consensus board to me. And when you talk about people complaining about the Zune pick, for example, and being like, hey, he was projected to go here, you can't even tell me the first thing about Trey Zune. So, like, don't tell me that it was a bad pick. Like, you don't know the first thing about him. How could you say it was a bad pick?
How many Texas A&M tape did you watch on Trey Zune? Like, I watched what I seen just from a couple Texas A&M games, and then of course I popped on some highlights, and then that was about it. But just what I seen in the game, he seemed pretty solid. He seems athletic for his size. Got physical hands, violent. I mean, absolutely. He's a guy that could push DJ Glaze, I think, for the right tackle spot. And to be honest, when we drafted him, I was I'll post a video because that's just how I do. I ain't trying to hide shit. But my first reaction was, what are we doing? What are we doing? We just paid $80 million for a center, and you're drafting a center, right? But then I'm like, wait a minute, didn't he play left tackle as well? Didn't he play guard too? Right. So started thinking about it, and then I looked him up, and I was looking through my notes and seeing what I had on guys, and I was like, oh shit, wait, he plays all positions. Okay, so now the pick just makes sense, right? Because when you bring in a guy like that, that's one less offensive lineman you need on the roster, because you have a guy, if your guard gets hurt, he can play guard. right? If your center gets hurt, he could play center. If your tackle gets hurt, you could throw him in a tackle. So that's one less roster position you need at guard, which would allow you to have 3 quarterbacks if that's the way they need to go, right? Or have that one on emergency and have, add an extra defensive back, or let one of these defensive linemen like, JJ Pegues that didn't get a lot of snaps, put him on the roster and throw him in the mix. So
exactly. And a lot of people don't project him to play tackle in the NFL. I'm not sure he will either, but I got to say one thing is he has great footwork, and we know that Kubiak likes to. He's not just a run guy like Pete Carroll was a run guy. Pete Carroll firmly believes pound the football, but Kubiak is of the new school where you get more creative with it. Like the Shanahans of the world get more creative with it, and Pete Carroll is just straight up the gut, But a lot of the creativity is to the outside, and DJ Glaze, for all intents and purposes, is not that kind of tackle who you can run a little swing with, and he leads the block to the left or to the right, whatever. But Zune is that kind of player. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that he's going to play tackle because of that reason, but I do think that is a thing to watch where Glaze does not do that. So I don't know how much of a fit that is in Kubiak, what Kubiak wants to do, but Zune absolutely is that. So that will be an interesting watch. And then you got other guys like McCoy that you touched on. The McCoy thing is interesting because I think a lot of people don't really know the injury, and the injury is really not much of a threat for right now. The injury is a threat for 2-3 years or whatever out.
Well, yeah, he ran a 4.6, so
Yeah,
the injury is nothing right now.
He's ready to go, like today. If the season started today, he's ready to go. But they just don't know what it is in 2-3 years, and it may never be a problem, right? But like that's their concern is 2-3 whatever years. They're worried about short career, not immediate start to the career. So when you look at all these picks, to me, man, when the big thing is the wide receiver, right? And I get it. Of course I get it. I mean, I think this wide receiver core, when you consider the weak top, bottom 3 in the NFL, and it kind of stinks you didn't touch on it until Malik Benson in the 6th, who's a really good player too. But I think that this team also did have a lot of depth needs and starter needs too. I mean, they got Traden Stukes, Traden Stukes, a guy, like you said, a lot of people didn't talk about, but this guy, if you watch the tape, you cannot really find a hole in his game, other than the fact that he's 25 and had an ACL tear, which he seems to be completely recovered from, if last year was any indication. He had the ACL tear in 24, and his tape in 25 was the best of his career. This guy, and he's 25 years old, so a lot going to be 25.
When targeted a 35% ratio for quarterbacks, that's straps. That's ratchet strap. Nobody's even throwing his way. And I believe no touchdowns.
You can argue, if you watch the tape, you can argue coverage is not the actual strength of his game. It's obviously a strength, but you can watch his tape and you could think, I don't even know if this guy is best in coverage because he is so good against the run. He's so good in the theoretical slot position, just jamming people at the line and having the strength to shut that down right there. Facts. Without a pass even being thrown, just shutting it down so the quarterback looks somewhere else. And it's insane. And then you add that coverage element too, and it's like this guy, if Caleb Downs wasn't in this draft, I mean, this dude would probably be heralded as not only the best safety, but as a gotta-get player. And the Raiders pick him up at second. He had no buzz around him, and he's a guy I really wasn't too familiar with either until the draft process really started picking up and I started hearing more insiders saying, I talked to this defensive coordinator and they just glowing talking about him. So I decided to watch him, and I was blown away. I mean, Stukes entering round 2 of the draft, he was my number 2 player on the board for the Raiders to pick, and they traded back and got him. Number 1 was Denzel Boston. They didn't get, and a lot of people are pissed about that. I get it. I do. Denzel Boston was my number 1, but if you can trade back and still end up with the number 2, even if you passed on the number 1, how can you say that that's a bad thing?
Right.
They just have a different vision. That's fine.
And it's a bigger need than wide receiver.
Yeah.
Because we got 10 wide receivers on the damn roster right now with 3 UDFAs. We have 1 strong safety, 1 free safety, and 2 strong safeties. So, our 1 strong safety, Jeremy Chin, and then Isaiah Palomau, who's labeled as a free safety, but he's not. He's a strong safety. And then Tristan McCollum. So we had 3 safeties on the roster. That was the best pick we could have got because you not only get a safety, but you get a nickel, a slot, and a corner. He can play all 3. You can put him wherever you got to put him. And the dude is very consistent. Quarterbacks are going to be scared to throw on him just because his athleticism. His instincts are very good. He baits quarterbacks. And to be honest, he wasn't on my list. A month and a half ago when I did my top 10 guys, he didn't really get on my list till I think the last month of the draft. The Raiders put out on one of their shows, but they put out their consensus, or I guess their Raiders consensus for the top safeties, and they had Traden Stukes at 6. And I was like, Traden Stukes at 6, bro. I didn't even have him in my top 10. So I went back and I was like, all right, let's go back and watch some of this. So I sat there and watched, probably a good hour and a half, and I was like, 6. 6? You got him at 6? What are you talking about? And then, reports right before the draft, there was people coming out and saying he's better than Caleb Downs. And I'm like,
yeah.
Better than Caleb Downs? Like, no way. So I went back and watched more tape, and I was like, I don't know about that, but I mean, coverage wise, yes. But so yeah, they got an absolute steal with that pick, and a lot of people are going to be surprised. And I think a lot of that pick not only had to do with his, accolades, his athleticism, his instincts, his tackling skills, but his character. I mean, the dude seems like, his interviews, he seemed like he was very, upstanding dude, had to fight for what he has, a 3-time captain. That's big, right? That's what the Raiders are looking for, guys with character. Being a captain for 3 years in a row, that says a lot for who you are as a walk-on, right? As a walk-on. So yeah, that was a huge pick for me, man. So yeah, I think they killed it in the draft. I was on somebody yesterday. I was watching somebody, and they were talking like they ain't never going to a Raider game again. This is the worst draft they've seen in the last 5 years, and I'm thinking to myself, wait, did you see the draft of the 5 years ago? Did you see the draft 4 years ago? Wait, how could this even be worse than the last 5 years? So there's a lot of mixed feelings in Raider Nation. Some people are excited, some people are overexcited, some people are just totally fed up with the way the Raiders are drafting, and I don't know. That's crazy to me. So
it is, and I think we talked about this last week too. I can't remember, but it's like, first of all, you don't know if the Raiders even are that big on Darian Porter right now. Obviously, Spytek drafted him in the 3rd round last year, and Porter barely played in college at all. So, obviously Spytek is a big fan of him, but that doesn't mean he thinks he's ready right now. It doesn't mean Kubiak thinks he's ready right now, or whoever the defensive coordinator is slipping my Rob Leonard, of course. It doesn't mean that any of them think that he's ready, right? But that aside, so you may need another starter at cornerback, which they obviously addressed. But then DeCamerion Richardson is your 3rd, and DeCamerion Richardson should be nobody's first rotational cornerback in the entire NFL. He should be nobody's. then after that, who even was the 4th corner, on the roster? I don't even know who it was. I don't even know if there was one, for that matter. And they went out and they addressed that in a major way, obviously with Jermod McCoy. That's massive. And then the other thing is Masses, was he a fifth round pick maybe, or the 4th round, their 2nd, 4th, or no? I think Mike Washington was
Masses was
the 5th
or 6th. Yeah, I think 5th or 6th.
I don't know if you knew this. He led the entire nation in pass breakups with 18 pass breakups. Nobody had more in the entire nation than Masses, and he plays at Cal, so he's not.
And Cal, that's what I'm saying. Cal Berkeley, right?
Like he's playing good competition. I
was saying that yesterday. You're up there in the East Bay, man. So you got to be tough, right? You got to be tough.
You're playing great competition.
Mendoza. A lot of people forgot, Mendoza was at Cal, up there in the East Bay. So he's been around Raider Nation, right? He knows the vibes. He lived it. Anywhere around the East Bay is Raider Nation, right? Maybe some San Francisco, but mostly Raider fans. So they both lived it. They've been around that, and to get into Cal Berkeley, you got to have, a 3.8 or, some 3.6 or something. I mean, you got to
have your head on straight.
Yeah. You got to be a very intelligent player or person, not player, but you got to be a smart person. And that says you can, retain a lot of information. You can learn information quick. And yeah, I think that says a lot for both of those guys. And, Dalton Johnson too, right? You bring in a guy that's best friends with Stukes, right? They said they're best friends. They feed off each other. And if you watch the film, you can see, man, these guys are talking. They're pointing. They're best friends not only off the field but on the field. And when you have that camaraderie, like we have at linebacker with Quay Walker and Nakobe Dean, and then as your front seven, and then your back guys are best friends, bro. This team is set. I feel like that just knowing all that information, I was just like, man, I'm trying not to get too excited and have expectations. But as a Raider fan that bleeds silver and black, how could you not? How could you not?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. I mean, they really and the Crawford thing, I know a lot of people, they don't know what to think of Crawford. I'm gonna tell you right now, and you probably know this because 'cause I'm sure you watched the tape. Crawford is an excellent pass rusher, and I mean, like, he is an excellent, excellent pass rusher. Now, the beauty of Crawford, and this might get a little scary because this is almost Tyree Wilson territory, and I know a lot of people are very turned off by that, but Crawford is very raw. And the fact that he is an excellent pass rusher and so raw is like, dude, imagine what this guy can become. And again, it's almost like the Tyree Wilson thing that's going to get people a little scared. That's like, dude, we've been trying to imagine what Tyree Wilson can become for 3 years. And I get that. But Crawford is a better pass rusher than Tyree Wilson ever was. Now, the area where Crawford lacks severely and why he was ultimately
The
a
run
third
game.
pick is the run game, yes.
Yeah, but then they said, but then I didn't mean to cut you off, but then they say the same thing about Max Crosby. What was Max Crosby's biggest knock coming into the NFL?
Yeah, I mean,
He couldn't stop the run.
That is true. And he
was pressure only. That's why he fell to the fourth round. Well, and the issues he had off the field, but so I've argued with people that Crawford at his stage now is ahead of where we drafted Max Crosby in the fourth round.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that 100%. He's quicker. He's more physical. He's stronger. The kid's got violent hands. He's got a bag full of moves that that he can use, decent bend and stopping the run, bro. That'll come in time, right? Like you said, he's raw, so
yeah,
that's not a big issue to me.
He's actually honestly, and I am of the camp where Max Crosby as a pass rusher is almost a little overrated. I mean, he's a good pass rusher. I don't think he's a great pass rusher. He is the best run stopping, high tier defensive end in the league.
That's where he makes his money. Tackles for loss.
Exactly. And it's really not even close. But Crawford as a pass rusher is damn near on par with Max Crosby pass rushing today in 2026. I mean, he really is that good of a pass rusher, and it's not just his moves, it's his twitch and it's his bend, and these are things Max Crosby does have.
And his motor, he's got that same motor and that attitude. Did you see his interview where he's like, yeah, let's go, bring me in, coach. Like, I'm gonna do everything. I'm gonna chase Max Crosby. I'm gonna follow him around, soak up information. Like he's already talked about, I'm trying to exceed Max Crosby. If I can't, then it's fun playing next to him, but I want to be better than Max. And come on, man, you get guys like that in the building with that character. That's crazy. But my guy Pigs Pig, shout out to you in the building. He says Crawford playing basketball and multiple sport athlete will also click with Crosby as well. And that's 100% facts too. And just having that basketball, background and being that athleticism, it's going to help. It's going to help him on the edge. OG, what's good, man?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Crawford is, he's a guy that he didn't finish all of his testing. So he doesn't actually have an RAS score, but what he did test in, it didn't look like his RAS score was going to be all that good anyway. But it's not necessarily that he's like the world's greatest athlete in terms of like speed or anything, but it's the twitch, his twitch and his quick burst, not sustained burst.
That get off, the physicality.
It's phenomenal. I mean, it's damn near elite tier already, and I mean, these are the exact opposite things of Tyree Wilson right there. Those are the things Tyree Wilson was very bad at, and Crawford, those are his very best traits. And everybody likes to say you can teach those things, and I mean, I guess theoretically you can, but like, how often do people who struggle with that come into the NFL and then they fix it and they're good
and learn it? Exactly. Like you either have it or you don't. There's certain things you can teach. You can't teach speed. You can't teach twitch. You can't teach that stuff. You can't teach instincts. That's something you have or you don't. Like it's God-given abilities that you learn to hone and to make better.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, great class, and they all have those instincts, man. They all have them, and Stukes has those instincts. Dalton Johnson has those instincts. McCoy does. Massis does. I mean, Massis is a guy that when they took him on the ABC broadcast of the draft, Louis Riddick was just in awe that he even fell that far. And Louis Riddick said that this is a guy he's going to not only make the team but play every Sunday. And I mean, analysts are just in awe that the Raiders are able to get him because, Massis is another guy.
I'm surprised he fell too. I had him. I was going through my mock drafts, and I think I did like 10 different mock drafts, which I guess ain't a lot, but I did 10, and he was on 6 of them. So, and Mike Washington was on 6. We're gonna pull those up. I'll break them down, or I'll post them or something. But yeah, man. So he was a guy that was highly, highly, highly touted on my list. I thought we needed, 2 safeties. We needed 2 corners. And what better way than to, if you could get one in the 4th? I thought he'd go in the 4th, really. I thought, he'd go before that. So just another steal there as far as I'm concerned. And like you said, just a guy that, he's a ball hawk. And how long has it been since the Raiders have had a damn ball hawk, right? A guy that could see ball, get ball. The ball's in the air. No, that's mine. That's mine. Like, give me that, right? We need some of those Mr. Gimme That's, right? I want to have a nickname for somebody, Mr. Gimme That, and I hope he's that. So yeah, we need those dudes in the building that can go out and get the ball, cause turnovers, get the ball back for your team, right? Those are all big assets, and I feel like he plays. I wouldn't be surprised if DeCamarion Richardson, doesn't make this roster. I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone. I wouldn't be surprised, if DJ Glaze is fighting for his life because, this 6'5", 6'4", whatever he is, he's a mauler. He's a guard, right? He's a guard. You put him at guard, and he's murdering people in the run game. But our problem is he's not better than any guards that we have because he's just going to be learning a position all over at guard, and then running a wide zone. He's not fast enough to pull if you have to pull, right?
Yeah.
Or get out in space or get to the next level. So I think DJ Glaze is the mule. His time, it might not be this season because we don't have no, but I guarantee you next season, if they don't find their right tackle, they're looking for one in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to have nothing but competition this year.
Yeah, he definitely needs to take his game to the next level. And something I said last week too is with DJ Glaze's rookie year, it really wasn't good. He led the league in pressures among every single offensive lineman. Nobody allowed more pressures than DJ Glaze his rookie year. I know everybody's like, oh, his rookie year is actually really good. It honestly wasn't. But what happened was the Steelers game plays TJ Watt, holds him to 0 pressures. So it shows you what DJ Glaze can do when he's at his best. Problem is, we don't really get him at his best all that much. And I know everybody likes to say last year's a wash. All right, fine. But then you still left with this rookie year that was his rookie year. So, we don't have to put all that much weight into it, to be fair. But it really wasn't that good of a rookie year. So you got to take a step forward, man.
Yeah, definitely got to take a step forward. And, I'm hoping that DJ Glaze's setback was just a bad coaching with Brendan Carroll, right? I feel like it was, we all know there was talks. Nobody knew what was the point of what they were trying to run, right? What are we trying to accomplish here? But they were that lost. So I feel like that helps them out. But just looking at it, he was thrown into the fire because Thayer Munford, got hurt when we had Thayer, who's over there playing for the Patriots anyway. But so I think a lot of that has to do with coaching because you look guys like Thayer Munford that never did nothing for the Raiders, and then he goes over there and he ends up getting thrown in games for the Patriots all season and holding his own, doing better than he ever did for us, right? So a lot of it just comes down to developing these guys and making these guys better. And I feel like DJ Glaze, I don't know who they can push them, right? How do you feel about Charles Grant going to the right side? Because I hear a lot of talk about, we'll just move Charles Grant to the right side. And I've said this before. This is my opinion. You don't move a guy that you drafted to be the replacement for a left tackle to the right side because Colton Miller's, we don't know about his health or how long he can stay healthy. So I don't want to move Charles Grant to the right side. And then if something happens to Colton Miller, then what? You have to move him back to the left side. And now you have to, bring in guys that you didn't really want on the right side. And now you're messing up everything. So to me, keep him on the left side. He already has a year over there, right? Let Charles Grant learn behind Colton Miller all season, a healthy Colton Miller, and just get better at that position. I don't feel like there's no reason to move him to the right side. What do you think?
All right, so my take on all that is if the Raiders are ready to win it all this next year, which they're not, but if they were, then that would make a lot of sense. Have a right guard competition, a right tackle, competition, and then if he wins it, he wins it, and then you got Colton Miller, and you got your best right tackle, who would happen to be Charles Grant in that scenario. Now the problem is, like I said, the Raiders are not there, so you would, to your point, you would be pushing this, and then the plan is, if you win now, the plan for the Raiders, as they've been going about their vision right here, is if you win now and you're in a position to win now, that's amazing. But that's not what you're shooting for. You're shooting for 2-3 years down the line. That's why every single one of these contracts from free agency are all 3-year deals specifically, no less, no more. And they're all in that age range of 25 to 27, no younger, no older, because that is the vision, 3 years. So to your point, in those 2-3 years, you don't know what's going to happen to Colton Miller, but Colton Miller is going to get older. I can only imagine he's going to have another big injury, considering he has one pretty much every single year. And then what? You put Charles Grant as your right tackle to put a Band-Aid on a problem, and then what happens to your left tackle when you actually are ready to win now after those 2-3 years? Now you have an even bigger problem. You don't have a left tackle. And, you could say, well, maybe Colton Miller is going to be good for the next 3 years, and maybe he will. But then if that happens, I don't know how Colton Miller is going to be tip-top shape for 5 years from now, for example, and then you're screwed. And all that for what? To smack a Band-Aid on a 1-year problem? It doesn't make much sense to me either.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like, just let the man develop over there. If something happens, then you got your guy. But and then I've been saying that and arguing with people, and then I kind of thought about it yesterday in my live, and I was like, well, Trey Zoon played a lot of left tackle, right, at Texas Tech. So Texas A&M played a lot of left tackle over there and played it pretty well. So are the Raiders looking like, man, we could get this guy 6'6", 308, let him pack on some pounds, let him learn behind Colton Miller, and maybe just throw Charles Grant to the right side and let him battle with DJ Glaze and the best man win. And maybe Zoon is the future, for Colton Miller.
Yeah. So your left tackle does tend to be like your bigger, sturdier guy, and I don't really know if that is Zoon would be my thing. So in college, all of your offensive linemen are relatively pretty freaking athletic, but when you get to the NFL, you have your preference of what guys you would like to be those athletes. Because that's the reason why the Dolphins, for example, take a Caden Proctor over Monroe Freeling, for example, because Monroe Freeling is the guy that you want to be a big bulky guy, and Caden Proctor, they want to do all that fancy stuff with H-hand, and then you get Caden Proctor who can do that, can do all those kickouts and whatnot. But I think the reason why I would think it's Charles Grant is because Charles Grant has excellent footwork. But he projects as a left tackle and always has throughout the draft process because he is that bigger guy. And it's not that Zoon is necessarily smaller, but he's comparatively, he's not that kind of space eater necessarily. He's the great blocker, and he's a guy who moves around a lot, and you want him to move around a lot. So right tackle for him makes more sense to me.
Yeah. That would make sense. I'm good with either way, but I just feel like you said, I think Charles Grant is definitely more of that left tackle type guy with his size, his physicality, the way he can move, his footwork. He's a mauler in the run game. Needs to get pad level just a little bit lower, I think, but those are all things that could get better. So the snaps that he did get last year, he showed that he could definitely hold down that side if he had to, and I thought he should have been holding down that side the whole time instead of Stone Forsythe, because just the couple of reps that he got just looked way better than Stone Forsythe any rep he had all year long. So yeah, that to me was a little irritating. What else? Let's see. What other, we talked about Chase Roberts. I think that dude's gonna definitely compete. But what other guys that out of the UDFA or the draft that you think has a chance to maybe help this team in a position that they've been needing for a while?
I think the obvious ones are obviously Mendoza, obviously Traden Stukes, not so obvious Crawford to fan base, but to people who know it's an obvious one. And I think I explained that a little bit with the immediate pass rush readiness, especially when you trade Tyree. I think that's self-explanatory. Who's after? who's after him? McCoy. That's an obvious one. Mike Washington might not be obvious to a lot of people. Oh, this is another thing, and this ties into your question. I wanted to say this earlier too, and it slipped my mind. Is Mike Washington is pretty much the perfect complement to Ashton Genty. I mean, they are. It's almost like if you gave. So Ashton Genty is plenty athletic, and he has plenty of explosiveness. But if you upgraded Genty's explosiveness to Mike Washington's explosiveness, you would be looking at probably the perfect running back in NFL history, to be honest with you. So they are the perfect complement to each other. Mike Washington can compete for the third down role pretty easily, but he probably is not going to be in the third down role. He's probably going to be in the legitimate, I don't know, like 60-40, 75-25 split with Genty. But the guy who is probably going to compete for the third down spot, undrafted free agent Roman Hemby, I think.
Oh, it's not. It's already his. There's no competition. I don't feel that third spot is his, and it's. You might as well wrap it up. We got 1, 2, and 3. I don't even think they have to compete in camp. I wouldn't be surprised if Collier, is gone, and they just have Hemby that's on the roster, and then helping on the practice squad. I think that playing with the 1s or 2s or whatever, however they work that out. But I definitely think he makes this roster. And then, like I said, Collier, I wouldn't be surprised if Labe's gone or if they just keep him around, for that special teams role, or just because he's the energy in the locker room. They might keep him around to find a spot for him, but I don't know if there's a spot for him. He's not beating out Mike Washington. He's not beating out Hemby. Like, both of those guys can catch, which is why they brought in Labe in the first place. I believed was his senior year. He played mostly receiver. He played X receiver, slot receiver. He played Z. He played all over, and he had some of the best hands in the draft coming out 2 years ago. So I really felt like Dylan Labe was going to be used in the backfield, wheel routes, on just out breaking routes, out cutting routes, and they never did. So I just don't see he has a spot. He's definitely, like I said, can't beat out Mike Washington or Hemby. I think those two are a lock.
But they might, when you normally, your first 50 guys on the roster who are going to make the final 53, and then the final 3 are just, you're spitballing, or, someone stands out in camp. That's normally what it is. The final 3 are up for grabs. So maybe there's something where, they're envisioning Labe in not necessarily a running back role, but in a gadget role where sometimes he is in the backfield, sometimes in the slot, whatever. That's a possibility he makes the roster like that. And something you said before, he's very good on special teams as well, which Roman Hemby is too, of course. But yeah, that's going to be interesting. And somebody said it in the comments, Tokyo Toe. That's another one that the only thing I worry about with Tokyo Toe is the power, because we really didn't see it. But, in saying we really didn't see it, I mean, we really didn't see it. Not that we saw he didn't have an NFL leg, but we did not see if he does or he does not, So there's going to be a lot of everybody's like, he can beat out Matt Gay. I'm not so sure. And it only comes down to the power that I worry about with him, which Matt Gay, to be clear, has a weaker NFL leg too. But we don't.
Tokyo's longest is 53. Somebody said that he's kicked 57 in practice, but not in the game. So we need a kicker that can hit 60 yarders. That's what, I'm tired of not. Every time it's over 50 yards, we're like, oh god.
So now AJ Cole,
it's the same AJ Cole thing,
It's ridiculous. And you have guys like Cam Little coming out of absolutely nowhere, kicking 70 yarders like it's just warm-ups, and we're stuck. Raiders have been stuck with guys who literally cannot hit a 60-yard field goal. Carlson and Matt Gay and possibly Tokyo Toe too, which is kind of annoying, but to Tokyo Toe, like all the hype and stuff, he's pretty darn accurate. The thing that I said on Twitter was with Tokyo Toe, I go back to Daniel Carlson. Daniel Carlson has not had an NFL leg since ever. But the thing is, he has been so accurate.
He's Mr. Consistent. And then that fell off. And Tokyo Toe's the same way. He's Mr. Consistent.
Exactly. Daniel Carlson does not have an NFL leg, but he literally had an all-pro through efficiency, through nothing but sheer efficiency. And that's the mold that Tokyo Toe is made out of. Matt Gay neither has the NFL leg nor has the consistency. But
I hated that pick. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised they keep him, sign him to a cheaper contract to be like, bro, we'll keep you in the building just to kind of mentor this dude for, maybe a couple games, and then you're probably going to get the boot. Because Matt Gay is I would have rather had AJ Cole to be honest. So
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, it's funny talking about the Raiders kickers since Janikowski, because a lot of Raider fans who only watch Raider games mostly are under the NFL has evolved so much in the last 10 years from field goals. Like 10 years ago, 60 yards, if you can't hit a 60-yarder, who cares? Like
Yeah,
most
yeah.
people don't. But Raider fans who mostly only watch the Raiders, they almost think it's normal that Raiders they don't have a kicker or haven't had a kicker who can't hit a 60-yard field goal. Like, that's just the NFL. No, that's not at all the NFL anymore. That's honestly Matt Gay, among all the starters, might have the weakest leg in the entire NFL. And
Hmm.
before that, it was probably Daniel Carlson. And to be clear, Daniel Carlson's leg is so weak that he is still a free agent. And everybody's like, how could they have gotten rid of him and how could they have moved on? Daniel Carlson is still a free agent for a reason. I'm not saying a team won't take a shot on him or have a kicking battle in camp, but he is still available for a team to sign because he legitimately does not have an NFL leg.
And that's the problem is Raider fan wants to bitch that we don't have a kicker, but then cry when we draft one in the third or fourth round or second round. Like, come on, if you want the best kicker in all the football, you're gonna have to draft one. Like, hi, like some of these guys, like, I mean, maybe not first round, like Al Davis would do, but sometimes you gotta take a swing on a guy, or just bring in one of these football cats, one of these soccer guys, and just develop him into a kicker yourself. That's what a lot of teams are doing. Like
Oh
a lot
yeah,
of
no, for sure. Like obviously
yeah.
Brandon Aubrey's the most famous example of that. But dude, for the last 2 years, I have been on Twitter criticizing Daniel Carlson, maybe even 3 years, maybe even 3. And people have been on me. Like, how could you say this? How could you say this? This guy's a legend. This guy's a Hall of Famer. And I've been like, dude, the only thing keeping his career together has been the accuracy. And it has been unraveling for the last 4 years consistently. It just keeps going.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was because he was one of the true Oakland Raiders left. We were down to 4, and I think they were trying to make that last as long as they possibly could. But yeah, he's never been one of those guys that can if you need a a game winning field goal from 50 more, it's 56 yards. Yeah, you're probably just going to go for it on fourth down. So we've had that in Raider Nation for a while. But I'm hoping and praying that with Kubiak's offense, that we don't have to be talking about too many, field goals over 50 yards, right?
For sure.
I feel like this offense can get us close enough that, if we can't pick up a first down here and there once in a while, then we should be close enough that it should be easy money for the kicker.
That's the hope, man. That's the hope. But you know what's funny? The Tokyo Toe is actually not even from Tokyo. When I found that out, I was like, "What the fuck?" That's
Yeah, he's Japan. Where's he at?
He man, Shibu, I think it's called. I don't
somewhere
remember.
in Japan though.
Yeah, it's honestly like in neighbors Tokyo. It's close enough, but still, I was like, damn, he's not even from Tokio. That's it's almost like I go to Japan, they start calling me Atlanta Alex or some shit. Like, I never even been to Atlanta.
Never even been to Atlanta. Like,
Yeah.
just because I'm from the United States, you just find me a city and pin it to me. Yeah, that's a crazy nickname. So that's
of a nickname.
That's funny as hell.
It is a hell of a nickname though, so I can see why.
I did not know that. That's awesome. So overall, man, what do you grade this draft for the Raiders?
All right. I give it an A-, and the reason why I give it an A- is because this draft deserves an A+. But you cannot overlook the fact, and I think it is a fact, that getting that top-end wide receiver was obviously safety aside, because they literally did not have a free safety on the roster. Like, quite literally, they did not. So that aside, top-end wide receiver is the biggest need on the roster. Still remains it. And they addressed it by getting Malik Benson in the 6th. That was their answer. And he was like, quite literally the 34th, 33rd or something wide receiver taken in the draft. So he was down there, and that has to be taken into account. Now, I know there are a lot of Raider fans who only take that into account and say, because this happened, the draft was a fail. Right?
It's a fail.
We're not doing that. I'm still giving it an A-. That's a pretty freaking sky high grade when you take into account that they didn't address the wide receiver thing at all. But it's like every single pick you look at, you understand it makes the team better. it's
And it makes sense,
it
finally, right?
makes sense.
Finally, the
Yes.
Raiders drafted players that made sense. It wasn't the biggest name. It wasn't the consensus that everybody, said this is the best receiver, this is the best tackle, and everybody's board was pretty much the same. And I love that. They're like, no, we
Yes.
have great scouts in the building, right? That know what they're doing. And the Raiders know better than anybody what the Raiders need. We watch from afar,
Yeah.
they're in the building. So they know what the biggest needs were more than anything. And if Spytek felt like wide receiver was not a huge need, because we have to remember the fact that you have two running backs. You're gonna run the hell out of the ball. You're gonna put, take the ball out of Kirk Cousins, Fernando Mendoza, AOC, Sawyer Robinson, whoever's gonna be the damn quarterback. You're gonna take the ball out of his hand as much as possible and make it as easy as possible on him on first and second downs. Get him in short yardage situations, right? To take the pressure off your quarterback. And I think a lot of people are forgetting that. And then the biggest thing is you still have Brock Bowers, right? If you have an X receiver, Brock Bowers, where's Brock Bowers? He's going to want his reps, right? He's going to want his touches. And even if they go and get another X, he's still the best damn player on the field. So you can't, just because he's a tight end, say, well, he's not our number one. We don't have that number one receiver. Yes, he is. Put him at the X, put him at the Z, put you can line him up wherever you want to. Line him in the backfield as a fullback. He's still the best player on anybody's offense right now. I mean, the dude is dominant. You can't guard him. So you have a guy that's unguardable. I don't think you need an X receiver to stretch the field. We have speed that, speed guys are basically, you run your route, you take a corner with you, you bring a safety with you. They don't need to be throwing the ball. They don't need to catch the ball all the time, right? Some teams they do because they don't have a running game. They don't have two running backs that, can catch a little 2-yard screen and take it 95 yards for a touchdown. Not a lot of teams do. We do now. So I think that's a big thing that people are overlooking. Like, yes, you need a wide receiver, but if you have a wide receiving core, do you really need that number one X receiver? I mean, how many years did the Dolphins have the best offense in all of the NFL with a 5'10 Tyreek Hill and a 5'9 Jalen Waddle?
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
Was it a 6'5 receiver? No, but they still had, were up there in yards and passing yards with Tua Tagovailoa throwing them the ball. I mean, none against Tua, but I mean, come on. With Tua Tagovailoa throwing you the ball, you're still one of the best offenses in all of football, year in and year out, with 2 5'10 guys.
I hear that.
And people overlook that. They, but we need that guy. How big is JSN? 5'10. Right?
I hear that.
How big is how big is St. Brown, right? What was he, 5'10?
Yeah.
So we have like 4 receivers that are 5'10 that have 4.3, 4.4 speed that are faster than JSN, that are faster than these guys. Why can't it work?
I mean,
see,
you
think about it. You got to think about that. You got to think about it, right? Kubiak, he used JSN as his number one receiver at 5'10. How many times did he line up at the X position? It was less than he lined up everywhere else. He lined up at the slot. He lined up at the Z. They threw him the ball out of the backfield. He wasn't he was the number one receiver, but he wasn't the X receiver. He was just their number one. So my thing is, your number one doesn't have to be this X guy that only goes on, is always the X. You're in trips on one side, and he's the the single guy that has to take that coverage. If the guy can run routes and he's quick, you're gonna get double teamed. It don't matter how tall you are, right? There's not a lot of corners that have guys that can run with 4.3 speed. That are elusive, that have twitch, that can get open. So I just feel like the X position is a little overrated in my opinion. When you have one of the best tight ends in all of football, when you have a running back that's probably going to be one of the best running backs in all of football, and then a guy that's right behind him, I mean, how many targets is your X receiver going to get?
This is what I got to say to all this. I think, and this kind of goes to your point a little bit, but it's going to venture off to your point. I think the X, Y, and Z is outdated. And the reason why I say that is you listen to all these coaches, these offensive coaches specifically, Kubiak said this, and guys who are old, Todd Monken, he's in his late 60s, he's probably in his late 60s, I don't know. But another offensive guru who's been around the game for so long, just got the head coaching job. They all say the same thing when they're asked, like, what is your system? What is your system? I don't have a system. The thing is, I get the best guys and I put them out there. It doesn't matter if all 5 are X's or if all 5 are Z's. It doesn't matter. I'm going to change my scheme to that. There is no there's no Todd Monken game plan. There's no Clint Kubiak system. It's get the best 5 guys out there that you can do no matter what they are. We make it work. So in that regard, yeah, absolutely. Like the X receiver means nothing. You just put your best 5 guys out there, and that's all there is. You just cater your system around that. But to that, and this is where I start venturing off of the point that you just made, is today's NFL is not about XYZ. It's about getting your best 5 out there, like I just said, and making sure that your best 5 are a great 5, making sure that your 5th best player on the field is basically as good as your 2nd best player on the field. And it's not about having a number 1, having a number 2, having a number 3. It's about having as many guys as you can who can compete for a number 2 or a number 3 all on the field at once. And we saw this with the NFL draft this year, and we see this every year with the NFL draft. But I'm just going to say, like, man, all the teams that you saw take a receiver, we can talk about like the Falcons. They have Kyle Pitts, who's just an all-pro. I'm pretty sure Kyle Pitts got an all-pro. If not, he was damn near close. And last year was Kyle Pitts' first big year, to be fair. But then they have Drake London, who's great.
How long did it take him to develop into that guy, right?
No, for sure. But
you drafted these wide receivers in the first, second round, and then how long did it take him to be that guy? I mean,
no, for sure,
every 4 years?
But Kyle Pitts is that now, or we can only assume, like, he was that last year. So we can only assume he's going to continue being that. Drake London is amazing. And then they got, I don't remember what they're doing with their second receiver. I can't remember who they signed, but they brought in somebody. And then they still prioritize getting a receiver in day 2 of the draft. You have a team like the Niners. They have freaking George Kittle as their tight end, who's elite at every single thing he does, including pass catching. They have Mike Evans they brought in. They started off free agency by bringing in Christian Kirk, who, people are going to scoff at. Christian Kirk is their 3rd best receiver behind Mike Evans and behind Ricky Pierce. So what do they do in the draft? And with George Kittle, like I said, and CMC, who I'm only mentioning because he's a big part of the passing game. They first pick of the draft, they spend on a wide receiver. This is what teams are doing who don't necessarily need a wide receiver, but the goal is not to fill out your XYZ.
Yeah, it's to have the best 5 in the building.
Exactly. And you see we just got to the point of free agency where the draft is over and compensation formulas are locked in. So now teams are starting to bring in wide receivers again. The first visit Juwan Jennings has is today with the Minnesota Vikings. TJ Hawkinson, arguably top 5 pass catcher in the league. Justin Jefferson, arguably the best wide receiver in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Addison, arguably the best wide receiver 2 in the league. And they still made it a priority as soon as the draft ended to say,
and they're going to be one of the best, and they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league because you have a bunch of prima donna receivers that ain't happy they're not getting the football, and then you're going to have running backs that are like, damn, why don't we never run the ball? We're constantly passing this. That's how you fail as a team, in my opinion. You can't bring in too many big guys. You need one big guy on your team. That's a problem with the Bengals. They have Higgins and Jamar Chase, and there's you have 2 great receivers, but come on, where's it getting them? How long has it been since they've been to the playoffs with one of the best quarterbacks in all of football and 2 of the best wide receivers? What's it got them? So the Raiders did what they needed to do. They did what the Bengals don't do and the Bills don't do, and all these teams that have these great quarterbacks and wide receivers don't do. They got defense. Defense is a priority. If you can get the offense off the field and you can get your offense off the field, that's how ball games are won. The defense was weak. We went and priorities in the second round. I think the X is overrated right now. I don't like that. And yeah, they went and got 3, they added another receiver to that group, but who's their tight end? Right? Who's their tight end? You know what I mean? And who's their running back right now?
No, I hear you. And I mean, for the Cliff Branch stuff, you can't compare Cliff Branch era to modern NFL. I mean, it's not even close. But man,
say Cliff Branch. Oh no.
Yeah, you can't. The NFL has just evolved so much. I mean, it's a totally different sport almost, to be honest with you. But
people are stuck in the 70s with this Raiders shit and thinking, oh, you gotta have you got to have a Tim Branch, or you got to have these guys. I just don't feel they're going that way. I mean,
No.
you brought in a guy with, like we talked about Cedric Jackson. You also have Malik Benson that you just brought in, right? He's gonna push some people. Dante Thornton, I wouldn't be surprised if they just moved on from him. I think that was a Pete Carroll pick. We talked about that last time you were live, right? But
Yes.
but then you got Derek Young. I mean, Derek Young, a dude that can run punt returns, a guy that's small, right? So I think this wide receiver core could be sneaky good. We got 10 right now, 2 UDFAs, and I know you got to get off here. So yeah, the last question is, man, what do you think? The future looks like with what we going. Obviously, you're on the train with a lot of people that say we still need that number one X receiver, but what do you think the future looks like? You think we're a 5-win team, an 8-win team? I hear a lot of people talking about with this draft and the way free agency went. If Kubiak could be that coach and get everybody to buy in, that some people are starting to bump it up to 9-10 win double-digit teams. And these aren't even Raider fans. These are other fans. These are fans of other teams. They're like, man, the Raiders could be in double digits this year. And you hear Colin Cowherd and all these guys be like, the Raiders are contenders. The Raiders are contenders.
Yeah. So I think there's only two ways this can go. And a lot of people are like, this, the Raiders did a lot to have them win like 7 games this past year. I don't think that's realistic. And let me explain this. There's so many new moving parts in this Raiders team. And I'm not just talking about the free agents. I'm not just talking about the draft. I'm talking about the coaches. There's so many moving parts. Now, this can go one of two ways. First way is, they just weren't ready and everything falls apart. And it makes sense because there's so many moving parts. The second way is you catch the entire league by storm. You get in stride right away. I'm talking about the Texans like 3 years ago now with CJ Stroud. I'm talking about the Commanders with Jaden Daniels, when they had all those new moving parts too, including the coaches, including free agents and all that stuff. And then you just get the league by storm. You catch, you get hot right away. The league doesn't know what to expect because there's all those new moving parts. There's no film, because from the players to the coaches, there's no film. There's no tendencies you can pick up on.
They're just playing back catch up.
Yeah. So to me, blows up in their face. And to be clear, if it blows up in their face, like I said earlier, the Raiders are not playing this 1-year game. So if it blows up in their face, it's not really blowing up in their face. They're just saying, dude, this was always 2-3 years down the line. I don't care. It just means we get Jeremiah Smith with the high draft pick now, for example.
You run those guys out there and you see what you need for next year. I mean, you're in a rebuild. They have already said it. This is a rebuild. It's a full rebuild. They they proved that with the Max Crosby thing. So yeah, go ahead.
So I would say either they win 2 to 6 games or 10 plus. I think the 7, 8, 9 range is too just, it's not something that happens when you have all those new pieces. It either blows up in your face or you take the league by storm. And it's one of those two things is what I think is going to happen for the Raiders next year. Which one? I don't know. It can easily go either way. And I don't really feel comfortable about making a prediction because it could easily go either way, and they're complete opposites. So,
well, you'll be back on again. So we'll have plenty of time for those predictions as camp gets in and preseason gets going. So
for sure.
But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on.
Of course,
as always,
man, of course.
It was fun. I didn't get to keep track of time because I forgot to see when you came in. Actually, I know I was going to keep it around an hour, but shit, I never keep my lives. It just go until people stop talking or get tired.
Next week or whenever we get together again, man, it can be longer. Just today was the reason why I forgot and it totally slipped my mind is because there's a lot going on today. And
yeah, that's why I was like, I know you got stuff going on with the family and the wife, so I wasn't really too worried about it. I was going to message you, and I was like, nah, if he's busy, he's busy. So yeah, it's all good, man. We held it down. I appreciate you being able to pull up and talk to people, give your opinion about the draft, and we'll definitely do it again next week if you're willing.
Absolutely, man. Hey, much love, Rebel.
All right, my brother. Appreciate you. Much love. All right, y'all. So there we go. My guy Alex Monfreda in the building. Appreciate him coming on. Got some things going on, so a little bit, shorter today. And like you said, next week we'll touch on a lot more things. We'll break down some things. Will we have some camp shit to talk about? No, we won't have no. Damn it. Time out. Oh, the dog's gonna go crazy. But yeah, man. Thanks for the show, guys. Sub to both of y'all. Like it. Let's appreciate it, my brother. Yeah, definitely. We are on the train to 2,000. We're trying to get up there. So all the likes, all the comments, sharing the live, all that helps boost us out there. As you see right here at the top, tip the plug. Tip the plug means like, comment, all that good stuff. Share, subscribe. And if you want to, support the channel, you could do it that way or the YouTube way. But just being here is all the support we really need. Gets us in the algorithm. The dog says she likes the Raiders draft. Yeah, the dog's always happy with the Raiders. Shout out for the $2 holler. Raiders. And I'm not done yet, man. It's almost 2 hours, so I might as well talk for a little bit. Yeah, the dog, she's always happy when it comes to Raiders. Actually, mom's home, but there's a lot of wide receivers coming out next year. Facts. Our luck, we can land one as well. And if you look at it, right, we got our quarterback this year, we got our running back this year and last year. We have our tight ends, right? We have our edge rushers, we have our safeties, we have our corners. Now, if the offensive line ain't what it is supposed to be, or they think it's going to be, you address that next year as well. If the wide receiver core isn't what we think it's supposed to be, and we're a decent team, and that's the only thing we're lacking is a wide receiver, you have till the trading deadline to go out and find your guy. If this team starts out hot and they're like, damn, the only thing we're missing is that X guy, right? So if you get to that case, man, there's always trades, right? There's always ways to bring in guys during the season. It's not like we're just strapped with these guys. We still have June 1st cuts, right? There will be a lot of people, a lot of receivers drafted last year, the year before that on teams that won't make their roster, and the Raiders can go out and get those guys. So I think that's the plan. I think people are buying a little bit too much into where we're at with, the roster. And like I said, Jack Best, I really feel, is going to have, a breakout year. I really think he is. Jalen Naylor, they brought him in for a reason. He's a dog. The guy can create separation. He has damn good catch, radius. He catches pretty much everything. He's got solid hands. I really like Jalen Naylor. And then Trey Tucker, man. Let's not forget on Trey Tucker, right? Yes, he was throwing, 92 targets, had 53 receptions. Not great numbers, right? But he had over 600 yards, had more touchdowns than he's had all season. And he's going to be in a better offense with a better system, with a better offensive line and a better quarterback. And those things make a difference. So, I think a lot of people are hating on these receivers also. And they forget the fact that, what were these receivers supposed to do last year? You had a quarterback that was sacked 65 flipping times, bro. 65 times. The Raiders gave up 65 sacks. You know how many plays? That's 65 plays a receiver didn't get a pass. That's 65 plays they didn't even get a target, or the ball didn't get out, right? That's 65 times that a receiver was supposed to touch a ball, or Brock Bowers was supposed to touch a ball, but they didn't because the offensive line couldn't hold up and do their job, and the quarterback got sacked and took the receivers out of the play. So we don't really know what we have in any of these receivers. Trey Tucker is the one that's been here the longest. We don't really know what we have in Trey Tucker because who's been throwing him the ball? What offense? We've had the worst offense since he's been here. The worst offensive coordinator, the bottom of the league in quarterback percentage and throwing the ball, except for when Aiden O'Connell was a rookie, but they took that away from him. Trey had his best year then too. Had his breakout year, when Aiden O'Connell took over. So a lot of people are sleeping on these receivers, man. Philip Dorsett, another guy, sneaky good. Derek Young, or Derek Young, right? They brought him in a lot of people say as a punt returner, but come on, the dude could catch. He could run decent routes as well. And, people are sleeping on that. And Kubiak is a coach that is, he's an offensive coordinator guru. He's going to find a way to scheme guys open. Appreciate the sub, my guy. Appreciate you. Appreciate you pulling up. What else we got? So yeah, man, don't sleep on all these receivers. Give them a chance, right? They finally got an offensive coordinator in the building that's going to cook, that can scheme these dudes up. Shout out if anybody's watching on Facebook and X. We are also live over there. If you are live over there, hop on YouTube, drop your comments, because I can't see the comments on any one of those. I don't know if anybody even watches on over there. But if not, I'm just going to start closing those out. But yeah, hop over on X, on Facebook. If you're over there, man, I appreciate you pulling up as well. Thanks to our guest. We have another guest coming tomorrow. We'll be talking, a little bit about Spytek, the future of Kubiak. We won't talk about the receivers. I might ask him one question about the receivers. It's a rebuild. Love the fact that the Raiders finally see it. It's a need. Raiders are going to do what Raiders doing what they said they would do. Build deep. 2007 will be nose tackle, defensive tackle, and X receiver. Unless Tonka Hemingway becomes that dude, unless JJ Pegues becomes that dude, unless Jonah Lalu in his third year takes that huge jump and says, this is my spot and I'm playing all three downs, and take it from me, right? Because I feel like we got guys in the building that can do that. Jonah Lalu is one of those guys. I think he's highly favored on Robbie Leonard's list. And, I don't think he was out there a lot because of the coaching staff, right? Who was ahead of him. Everybody has a boss. He was just running the defensive line. I believe Jonah Laulu gets those reps. JJ Pegues is, a lot of people forget about JJ Pegues' athleticism. This is a dude that played fullback at Ole Miss. This is a dude that was running people over with the ball in his hands from 10 yards out, running touchdowns. This is a dude that's athletic as hell. He can get to the quarterback. He just wasn't on the field because of the bad coaching, right? So, and most of those people, I know who they are, but just do your homework. Do your homework before you talk about players and, be like, oh, this dude has a problem, or he's an issue, or I don't like him because, he was drafted and they took this guy in front of the guy that I wanted. That was the problem with Tyree Wilson, right? Yes, he was slow. Yes, he didn't have good get off. Yes, the Raiders had bad coaching around him. They didn't develop any players. I mean, everybody says it was Tyree Wilson that never developed, but name me one player on the defense that developed in the time Tyree Wilson was here, right? Charles Snowden didn't get any better, right? I think the only one was the dude that my boy that ended up going to the Patriots. I can't even think of his name right now. So there wasn't any development on this offensive line. It wasn't just Tyree Wilson that was drafted 7th overall and didn't do anything. It was a bust. There was a lot of players that haven't developed because there hasn't been the coaching. There hasn't been the consistent coaching. It's a different scheme every single year. And you can't expect anybody, not even Pro Bowlers, not even first-team Pro Bowlers, to go out there and play at a high level when you have a new scheme every single year. So give these dudes a chance. GD give JJ Pegues a run with the rock on the goal line. 100%, man. Hand on the ball. They should have done that last year. He should have been our fullback. He should have been a dude in short line situations that was out there blocking, for Genty. That way, if you have a 320-pound defensive lineman in front of your running back, your running back's not getting hit every time he touches the ball. He's not getting hit in the backfield before he even gets to take one step. He's stopping that, right? So, I mean, that just goes to say, again, horrible, bad coaching, and you can't expect any of these dudes to develop. And then Tonka Hemingway. Tonka Hemingway is a guy that comes in in 5 games, has 4 sacks, gets pressure on the quarterback, is running around with that motor. And if you're telling me that you can get JJ Pegues, Tonka Hemingway, and Jonah Laulu as your front 3 in a 3-4, I'll take that all day. Me. This is my Fernando Mendoza emoji. Shout out my guy. My guy G Warb in the building. What up, G Warb? He says Mendoza will have no excuse after he settled in, because when talking about getting rid of players who are bad during the year, you will do the same for quarterbacks when he is not producing. G-Warb, I don't know if I read that right, but let me tell you this, my brother. Let me tell you this. Let me tell you something. I don't feel. I think you're missing the point with a rookie quarterback, right? Yes, you want him to play year one and develop, but he doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. He was drafted first overall. They're going to give him more time than they gave Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell, drafted fourth round, has stuck around for 3 years. So they're not just going to throw Mendoza to the back of the line if the dude isn't coming out and, that dude, number one. Yeah, I see JJ, Pegues, but now we have Hayward, right? We have a fullback in the roster, and a lot of people are forgetting about that too. We have a fullback. Mike Washington never had a fullback in front of him in Arkansas, right? Now you have Ashton Jeanty and Mike Washington with a fullback in front of them. They're not going to get hit as soon as they touch the ball. That's going to change the dynamic of this offense 100%. But JJ Pegues is a defensive tackle, bro. He's a defensive tackle. He's a 3-tech, a 2-tech, 2-eye, whatever you want to call it. Nose. I think he can play all of those. And his athleticism, I just don't understand why he's on the field. Now, he got a little bit of burn, right? But it wasn't enough to get in a rhythm. And defensive linemen, bro, you got to get in a rhythm. Some of them can, just have that burst and they can go get the quarterback and then go sit down for 5 plays, come back in and get the quarterback. But some of these guys, they need to play. They need to get in a rhythm. Lost 2 pitchers of beer to 805 for not getting 1 carry last season. That sucks. Well, at least it was just 2 pitchers of beer, right? And I was with you. Jack Ken. I believe he should have definitely had some carries in the goal line situation. And even if they weren't carries, right, just put them in there to block. Be that big body dude to just make sure your running back gets the ball and is able to take a step or 2 or make a cut or a jump cut or a spin move or stiff arm or something before he gets hit. And the Raiders didn't have that last year. Ashton Jeanty was murdered in the backfield over and over again. And JJ Pegues would have been that barrier between the defensive line and the running back. And now we have Hayward, who, we all know what his brother does over there in Pittsburgh, right? The family tree, right? This dude is physical. He can catch, he can block. And Hayward he's gonna make this running back room and the offensive line better, right? And that's another reason. You have to look at our offense, right? Let's count. Can y'all count, right? You have left tackle, left guard. You have center. You have right guard. You have right tackle. You have a quarterback, a running back, a tight end, and a fullback. That's 9. That's 9. 9 players. If you bring in another tight end, you only have a spot for 1 receiver, but we have 15 on the roster. Now, if you take away that tight end, you still have 9 and you only have a spot. Why did I just lose connection? What the fuck happened? I guess I'm back. I lost y'all for a minute. But anyways, you see what I'm getting at. If you put your fullback in there with your running back, now you have a fullback, a running back, a tight end, and you only have a spot for 2 receivers. One of those receivers got to be Jack Besh. To me, has to be Jack Besh. And the other one is Jalen Naylor or, Trey Tucker. So I don't see a lot of sets where we're running, all goes. I don't see a whole lot of all go because we don't have the receiving core to do that. But what we do have the receiving core to do is to pass the ball, short yardage situation. Who's great in passing the ball in short yard situation? Fernando Mendoza. He doesn't throw the ball over 20 yards, but once or twice a game. That's what he does. Blue 52, silver, say, huh? Balls out, right? Balls out. I'm just saying. I think we're overlooking the wide receiver position in this scheme and in this offense. I drank my beer on ice, full cup of ice. It's healthier. Nice. So you're drinking a little bit of water with your beer. I get that. I know, people back in the day that every time they drank a beer, they drank a glass of water. I don't know if that ever helped. But I get it. He will have a couple of years to prove himself. Not saying right away. No more car syndrome. It's on me, bullcrap. But bro, it's gonna be that. You don't think Fernando Mendoza is gonna come up to the podium every single game and sound goofier than Derek Carr? You don't think he's gonna come up there crying? And probably not because he's about to get cut and he's tired of this team losing after 10 years. No, he's gonna come up there emotional. That's just because the person and the character he is. So you're gonna hear a lot of Mendoza saying, "Oh, it was my bad. This loss is on me," the same way Aiden O'Connell did. But that gained him no respect in the building whatsoever. Aiden took every loss of every game he was ever in and said it was my fault. I could have did this better. I should have did this better. I could have did this better. But got no credit for it. No credit whatsoever. It's true that Mendoza's jersey are the biggest selling jersey in all of sports right now. Now or no, I heard that. What? I believe they are. There's a lot of Latino culture that are Raider fans, and there's a lot that will be Raider fans. Now, there's a lot of probably, the Cuban culture that is probably going to watch a lot more football because, they have a Cuban quarterback in the NFL. And then I believe, is he the first Cuban? I know not the first Latino, but is he the first Cuban descent quarterback? So, yeah, man, it's going to sell jerseys. It's going to blow up just like Shador and maybe a little even more. You don't get it. I don't want to hear that. And over with the consequences. You don't get it. Well, I mean, it is what it is, bro. You could be over with the consequences, but yeah, there should be consequences for people not playing well, like Geno Smith. I mean, he should have been pulled in week 3 in at least for a game or two, and then put back in to see what he could do, right? But he didn't. I think we have better guys in the building than that. I feel like there's a reason you keep 3 quarterbacks. Our GM, Cook Spytek, said, right, he's going to it'll be Kirk Cousins with the first snaps. He's a veteran. He earned that right. Then more than likely it'll be Aiden O'Connell. So, if Kirk Cousins comes out and plays horrible, do they let it ride out or do they make a change? I don't know. Not just for Latino people, but for the entire world on sales of the jerseys. I mean, how can you not love the kid though, right? How can you not love the kid? So yeah, you're gonna have. I mean, he's a star. There's millions of Raider fans, bro. Raider Nation is worldwide. Go to you can go to other countries, Australia, Japan, Great Britain. You can go to all these countries. There's people rocking Raiders jerseys, so they are well known. Very, very diverse culture over here. I think Al Davis started that a long time ago. And yeah, man, that's what we got. So shout out to the special guest. Shout out to everybody in the building. And don't sleep on this wide receiver class, man. Do not sleep on this wide receiver class. I just want to go over everybody's numbers real quick, and then I'll get off here. But before I do that, the internet loves the Raiders draft, and I'm going to tell you why the internet loves the Raiders draft. Hear me out. CBS gives the Raiders draft an A. I think that's where I had it. Underdog Fantasy gives them an A. I think that's where I had it. The Score gives them an A. Y'all already know the rest. USA Today, an A. Yahoo, biggest draft winner. PFF, Yahoo, Raiders are the biggest draft winner. PFF, A minus. Fox, A. NFL Network, a B plus before day 3. And SI, Hondo Carpenter, the dude that says he's not a Raider fan, and Sports Illustrated gave the draft a B. You got to do better, Hondo. You got to do better. But that's how he feels with it. Good numbers, right? You can't beat that with a bat. And then our players now have uniforms. If you don't know, well, now you know. Mendoza, obviously, rocking the 1-5. Thank God, because I had some shirts that I would have had to throw away. See a lot of people rocking Mendoza shirts. But they all gonna be rocking the same one, buying them from the same people. Thank God mine's different. I made my own shit. Mendoza, number 15. Stooks, 31. I like that number. That's a good corner / safety slot number. Malik Benson will wear number 19. Mike Washington, my dog, will rock number 30. Kieron Crawford will be rocking the number 42. Trezon the third will be rocking the number 66. Gerard McCoy will be rocking a crazy number for a defensive back. I think that's more of a running back number to me, but he'll be rocking 2-8 in the house for Gerard McCoy. And then my guy, the guy rocking my high school number. Yes, at safety and running back, played both sides. Hezekiah Masses will be rocking the 3-5. 3-5, baby. 3-5. So, shout out to Hezekiah Masses. What a great number, bro. What a great number. Great number. Rocking the 3-5. And then Daryl Johnson will be 43. And Mr. Cleveland will rock the big 9-0. So, those are our draft picks. Those are their numbers. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. And then one more thing. If my guy Jack Ken is in the building, right? Because Mike Washington, he seems to have a lot of issues. But let me just read this real quick. Darren McFadden, RAS score, 9.65. Mike Washington, 9.90. Darren McFadden's height, a 9.5. Mike Washington, 9.49. Weight, 223, 211 for McFadden. Obviously, Washington is better. The bench press, Mike Washington had 17 reps at 225. Darren McFadden, drafted 4th overall, had 13. 40-yard dash. They both ran a 4.33. The 20-yard split, Mike Washington's was a 2.52, and Darren McFadden's was a 2.53. The 10-yard split, 1.5s. The vertical, my guy Mike Washington had a 39-inch vertical, and Derek McFadden had a 33-inch vertical. The broad jump, 10.08 for my guy Washington, 10.08 for my guy McFadden. The shuttle, 4.32, 4.10 for McFadden. And then the 3-cone drill was 3.86 for McFadden, 3.96 for Mike Washington. Those are legit numbers. Drafted in the 4th round. In the 4th round, you have competitive numbers to a Darren McFadden that, could have been that dog if he just stayed healthy. So Mike Washington got all those accolades, and, my comp to Mike Washington is just a tiny bit smaller, maybe 5 pound lighter. But I see a whole lot of Eddie George, the thickness, the tall legs, but a way faster Eddie George, right? That's what I see. A dude that has the high steps, that can lower his shoulder because he has the weight and the size to just run over a guy. I think Eddie George is like 6'3", 230, 234 or something. Mike Washington's 225. There's a couple pounds difference, like an inch difference. I don't see Washington as McFadden at all. I see a better version of Zeus. Bro, I'm gonna hold you to that, Kenna. I'm sorry, man. I love you, my guy. I love you, my brother. But I just don't know where you get that comparison whatsoever. Whatsoever. Zeus is way shorter. He's way thicker. He's got 3-inch shorter arms. He's got smaller hands by an inch. It's not even the same ballpark. He can't catch out of the backfield. Mike Washington can catch out of the backfield. Zeus has no vision whatsoever at all, right? He's see hole, hit hole, and go and run over people. Mike Washington is the total opposite. He has decent wiggle. He can stop on a dime. He can make those juke cuts. A lot of people say he's a one-cut guy. I don't know which film they were watching, but I will tell you one thing. It wasn't a lot, because you can't get a lot of Arkansas film, unless you know somebody. There's not really a whole lot out there. So I just don't get that. I don't get that. He's a McFadden all day to me. And a little bit, like I said, of Eddie George. He got that high style running, got that Bo Jackson speed, size, long legs, right? I think all of that. The only thing Mike Washington had was he had a couple fumbles. He had 5 fumbles in his career in 4 years, 5 years. That's one a year. I mean, come on. Ashton Jeanty had the same. He fumbled, twice last year. Like, guys are going to fumble in the NFL. And Mike Washington's fumble at Arkansas last year was one time at the goal line where he was turning. When he turned around, there was 2 people punching out the ball, and the other one he was stripped from behind. So yeah, you got to tighten up the ball. There's no excuse for fumbles, but it's not like the dude's a fumble machine. It's just laying the ball down every time he touches it. Mike Washington should have rocked the number 24 or 27. I wish he would have wore 27. 27 would have fit nice. That Eddie George comp that I got. No, Washington is not McFadden at all. McFadden had skinny legs, bigger upper half. Nah, his upper body was not bigger, and not injury prone like McFadden, which we knew drafting him. So stop calling him McFadden. No way in hell. I didn't call him McFadden. See, that's where you're mistaken. I never once said he was Darren McFadden. I comped him to Eddie George. I think that's a better comp to me. Just a lot faster Eddie George. But size-wise, speed-wise, and you just seen me read off the RAS scores, right? And, in case you didn't, I just read off the RAS scores. They were, neck and neck. There it is, right? There's the scores. Legit. Mike Washington, Darren McFadden. I'm not making the shit up. They're neck and neck and everything. So, yes, the only difference is McFadden had an injury, coming out of college, did have some injury history. McFadden also had, Felix Jones over there and Ellis. So, had two running backs. He wasn't the number one guy. But the McFadden, a little bit stronger upper body, stronger build McFadden that can stay healthier. I don't think that's a bad comp at all. I really don't. Thanks, Jack, for the salute on how Raider Ben haven't listened to him in a while. What are we talking about? And then Rebel, he can't catch out of the backfield. What? See, now I know. Come on, man. That's bullshit, bro. That's bullshit. We are gonna break down Mike Washington film, dude. I'm gonna pull up film on this. Jack Kenna, go look at your Instagram. I sent you 3 videos. 3 videos. He can't catch out of the backfield. 1 cut, can't block. 21% stop for no gain. Bad vision. All the same traits as Zeus. He will sing better than Zeus. I mean that I respect your opinion, my brother. I hope you're wrong. I don't see that at all. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what games you were watching. I wish you would tell me what games you watched of 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 Mike Washington all the way through, or what film you watched. Please send it to me because I would like to know what you're seeing. I didn't see any of that. I seen him standing up defensive ends. I seen him blocking just fine, freeing up his quarterback to run 80 yards down the field over and over again. I seen him catching out of the backfield. 21% stop for no gain. That's again the same as Ashton Genty, where your offensive line is just getting murdered and obliviated because Arkansas played teams like Texas A&M, um, Old Miss, like the Tennessee. They played 7 top 25 teams last year that were way better on the defensive, the front 7 than Arkansas's offensive line. And the dude still had over 1,000 yards. Kenna, I don't get that. I don't get that, but it is what it is. Haven't seen you in a long time. Rebel, how long have you been a Raiders fan? 51 years. 51 years, my whole life. I bleed this shit, bro. I bleed this shit. Mike Washington Jr. Have the Mark Van Egan number 30. Right? That's a nice number. Second leading rusher in Raiders history with 5,907 yards. Greg Lira with the stat. I love it. I love it. That's a nice nice throwback right there. Mark Egan. Damn. He's still second all time. He won't be for long. Hopefully he's playing like him. I hope to God he plays like him too. I hope I'm wrong too, bro. I hope you do, because I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say Zamir White went in the 3rd round, right? But look at the regime that was picking him. That's all I got to say about that. We'll see, man. We'll see. I hope you're wrong too, bro, because, if you're right, then we wasted a 4th round pick on a guy that can't block, can't catch, has only one cut, and runs a 4.3, which is crazy talk. Oh, sorry, I thought you were saying McFadden. McFadden overall sucked. Had 1 or 2 good seasons. Yeah, McFadden had some big runs for us, but he also had the turf toe issue, and we seen from Deion Sanders' end of his career, right? That turf toe could be absolutely filthy and ruin guys' career. So, yeah, McFadden had some good years with Dallas too. He left us. He went to Dallas. He had some big games there. He just couldn't stay healthy, man. Couldn't stay healthy. Rebel, do you live in Vegas or Canada? What? Canada? I'm in Arkansas, bro. I guess that's kind of like Canada compared to the desert, but I don't know. Canada, eh? That's funny shit. So yeah, man, that's what we got for today's show. My grade on this class, on the free agent class, is I'm gonna give it a B. Not a B minus, not a B plus, just a straight out flat B. I feel like there's some guys that are going to make the practice squad that, could stick around for a while and may take the jump somewhere in the season, right? Some of the receivers, the linebacker like Sori, right? I feel like they had a pretty solid class. I thought last year's UDFA class was solid as hell, but how many players do we have left from that class? So I'm gonna leave y'all with that. Where do you think the Raiders stand this year? Is it 2 wins? Is it 5 wins? Is it 8 wins? Is it 10 wins? And do you think the Las Vegas Raiders have done enough in free agency, the draft, and you still got June 1st cuts coming up? But looking at the roster right now, we are going to break it down on Thursday. We have some guests coming in next week as well. We have a guest tomorrow, so make sure you're here for that. He won't be on very long. It'll probably be 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes if we're lucky. Very busy man. Has a job to do in Vegas. So Yeah, make sure y'all pull up for that tomorrow. I don't know the time yet. I'm still waiting. So as soon as I get the time, the link will be posted. Make sure you follow and subscribe and tickle the noti to be notified when we go live. And with that, I'm out, man. I appreciate the 12 still in the building. Everybody that came through. If you came through on X or Facebook, hop over to the YouTube. Give me a like and a follow. Like I said, we are getting close to 2,000, and I got a lot of work up to do to make up some ground on some dudes that are smoking me. So yeah, we got to get to work. 3 wins, get a high draft pick. Oh, don't say that. Don't put that out there. No. No, hell no. My grade is a solid A if McCoy plays, A minus if not. Spytek playing chess. Yes, he is definitely playing chess. And he seems to be dominating that chessboard. So yeah, I give it an A. I give the UDFA class a B. I see, the potential of maybe 4 or 5 guys sticking around off that list. And if McCoy stays healthy and he plays this year, it's an A+ draft for me. It really is. Like, the only one I say it as the last pick because I thought there was a lot of defensive tackles on the board. But again, we thought there was a lot of players on the board in front of a lot of the guys that they drafted, and they had higher grades than we did. So for that, I love it. I love the fact that they're actually doing their homework and they're not drafting guys. My guy Alex Monfreda was on here. He was saying the same thing, right? Well, they had this guy on the board and this guy on the board and this guy on the board, but all those guys were big name guys that everybody was talking about. And the Raiders didn't draft the big name guys that they were talking about. They drafted the guys they did their homework on. And for that, I love it. I'm out. Peace. Much love. Appreciate y'all. Raiders.